What up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Kevin, for those of you that don't know me. And today, I'm going to be helping you find clarity, direction, and how to apply it. I've got a free resource in the description. It's a PDF of everything I'm going to be talking about today. There's a few exercises there, which I encourage you to try out. They've been very helpful on my journey and very effective. So today I'm going to be running through, the key aspects of how best to find clarity, some key questions to ask yourself. But I think I just want to start things off by talking about what often gets in the way of clarity, because most of the time we have the answers and we can't hone in on them. We can't tap into them. But I'm a big believer that everything we need is already inside us. It's more a shedding process, removing the things that aren't you and sifting out everything that isn't applicable or beneficial. So we're going to dive straight into it. And the first question I'm going to ask is, what do you really want? Now, it might be hard to really identify what this is for you, but I guess some things that I would encourage you guys to do if you're going to be taking the time to find clarity and to answer some of these questions is we need to create the time and space for it. We need to be able to sit down without distractions, without overloading ourselves with information and noise, ultimately. So first step is creating space, creating quiet, creating some time for yourself where it's just you and a pen and a piece of paper. So I'm hoping that you're ready for that. If you want to go back and use the resource that I have in the description and do this in your own time, that's perfect. Or you can follow along. But there's probably a little bit of extra info and some extra tips, insights in the PDF. So definitely check that out. So what do we actually want? For me, this took a while to figure out, but there's some key questions that I would encourage you to ask yourself. Number one being, what would you do if money were no object? If you didn't need to worry about paying the bills, you didn't need to worry about making it financially viable, like what would you actually want to do with your life, with your time? Would you want to develop a skill? Would you want to immerse yourself in a sport or a hobby? And what would your ideal day look like? What would you really want to do day to day if you didn't have to worry about the stresses and the obligations of life that we all have to manage and coordinate on a day-to-day basis? It's not to disregard maybe the challenges that we face, but getting clear on what our ideal day looks like and what we would want to be doing with our time if we didn't have to work. If money were no object, what would you want to do? Now, it does require some contemplation I'm going to go into different aspects of maybe what holds us back from having this clarity, because not everyone can answer this straight away. But what would you do with your time? What would you do if money was no object? And what would your ideal day look like? We'll come back to that once we've maybe gone through everything. So, obstacles. What's going to get in the way of this clarity, and what might be steering us off track? For me, these have been limiting beliefs, not believing what I want is actually possible, not believing I have the time, and all of the excuses that come with that. This might look like I'm not ready. What if I fail? It could be your daily habits, distractions, and a false sense of what we think is in the way. Because at the end of the day, if you don't know what we want and we don't know what's standing in the way, we're not going to make any action and we're not going to make any changes. And that's as simple as I can put it. Now, I think the most effective way to kind of look at this, and as a practice, I would encourage you guys to kind of come back to this time and time again, because it might change and you might gain more clarity, you might gain more insight, or you might pick up on some more patterns or triggers that are standing in the way. But if you can identify what you want and what you're aiming for, there's probably going to be a list of limiting beliefs that would stop you from pursuing what you want. So an exercise that you can do is to get a sheet of paper, split a line right down the middle, and you've got your limiting beliefs on one side, and you've got more your liberating truths, things that you want to work towards. So, for example, it could be, what if I fail? What if it doesn't work out? It could be on the left side of the page, and on the right side of the page, a liberating truth would be, what if I succeed? And what if it all works out? Or it's gonna work out, because whatever we identify ourselves with is usually where our beliefs, thoughts, and actions are gonna follow. Beliefs, thoughts, actions. So, once we've kind of identified what's in the way, we probably are getting a little bit clearer about what we actually want, because we're actually seeing the parts of ourselves that are stopping us from moving in the direction that we really want deep down. So I would encourage you guys to do that exercise. Now, gaining clarity about what we actually want and what we're working towards, there's probably also going to be a list of triggers and self-sabotage mechanisms that are in the way. We're all used to saying, we're going to start this, we're going to do that, and then it comes to doing it and we just don't. And then we kind of fall into this spiral of guilt and shame and reinforce why we can't do the things that we say we want to do. So identify your triggers, identify what you're resisting and maybe why. A good practice for this is going to be journaling, reflecting, meditating. And another key thing to highlight would be, and this is a question again, which I'd encourage you guys to ask yourself, is what might I lose if I grow? Because whatever you're doing now, you're probably in a nice little bubble. Or maybe it's not nice and comfy and cozy, and you're at a point where you really want to make a change. But what I've found in my experience is that I've kind of been scared to look at what I might lose if I pursue the things that I actually want. Because what it will require you to be is an entirely different person. You're going to have different habits, different goals. Your friendship circle might look different. Your habits might look different. Where you live might look different. Because if you're still living in the same hometown that you grew up in, and you really get clear about what you want and say, hey, I want to move halfway across the world. But what's holding you back is all the things that you would lose if you actually went for that. If you actually chose something different, you would have to leave behind, your friends, your community, your familiar surroundings, your habits. And that can be painful, but it can also be really, really liberating, because I'm assuming if you're here watching this video, you probably want to make a change of some sorts. And that is going to linger. That's going to be something that you just have overhanging in the background until you make the change. Or you might get to the end of your life and be like, damn, I should have done that. And that's why I'm making a video like this, because I don't want you to get to the end of your life and say to yourself, I regret not doing X, Y, Z. All right, moving on. Another exercise is, and this is like another column exercise. So you have a left-hand side of the page, right-hand side of the page, line in the middle. If I stayed the same, what would my life look like? Write a list. If I was to change, what would my life look like? And this is going to give you a pretty clear distinction of what your life's going to look like if you don't change, and a pretty clear picture of what your life would look like if you do change. And hopefully that seems a lot more appealing. So hopefully we're kind of getting somewhere. We're kind of sifting through some of the blocks, some of the things that are in the way. It's going to be really specific for you. I don't want you to go and do what I'm doing, or I don't think it should look a certain way. I think it should be exactly personal to you. And I encourage you to try these exercises from the most truthful place you can to yourself. So now, hopefully, if you've done all of these exercises and you've asked these questions and you have sort of like a sense of what you want. Now, it might still be a little bit scary, a little bit intimidating, and that's okay. The next part would be the game plan and how to actually apply yourself. Now, if you've gone through all of this and you've been listening along and you don't have the clearest idea of what you actually want and the direction that you want to go, start really small. Like, what would your life look like if you just ate the same food that you've been eating for your whole life? Or how would your life look like if you just had the same friends? And how would your life look like if you just lived in the same house for the rest of your life? You know, it's going to give you a sense of what you might want to change. And this isn't, you know, all of these exercises and all of these questions, I encourage you to just keep coming back to, because as you move through life and as you change, so are your desires, so are the things that you actually want. They're going to get clearer and clearer as you sift through what you don't want. There's actually a concept called the anti-vision. Now, basically what this is just getting really clear about what you don't want and what you don't want to become. And yeah, I'd encourage you guys to go and check that out. I'm sure there's a bunch of videos on YouTube titled The Anti-Vision. It's a really great concept. Now, hopefully you do have an idea of where you want to go, what you want to work towards. And it might seem a little bit overwhelming. So, as I've said it before, you want to take the goal and bring it back to the smallest step that you can make today. So, the game plan. Choose one core goal. You might have a few. You might want to radically change your life, but you can't change your life overnight. So we're going to break it down into weekly and daily steps that you can make. So what are 3 actions this week that you can apply yourself to? This might be going for a run, you know, eating a lot more fruit, or it could be implementing a journaling practice. It could be looking at rental houses in the new city that you want to move to. What are the daily habits that would support the goal? So what's going to help support you in that direction? Now, for me, it's always been about health and nutrition, because when I'm eating well, I'm a lot clearer and I have a much greater sense of clarity and also the energy to actually pursue and fulfill these steps. So it might look a little bit different to you, but what are the daily habits that are going to support that goal, and what are 3 actions that you can take this week to move in that direction? Now, things that are going to really help is journaling, movement practice, whether it's walking, running, working out, meditating, sitting in silence. But more importantly, I think, is an emotional check-in. Like, what's alive for you today? And the more that we connect with that, the more that we're going to gain a sense of autonomy over our day-to-day lives, and we can reorient ourselves towards the goals that we want to achieve. Now, a final exercise, which I've actually only heard of recently, but it's extremely effective. And it's basically a revision and a visualization at the end of every day. And it's, what would I do differently So you finish the day, maybe you're in bed or you're in on the couch or in your throne. Just sit with yourself and ask yourself, what would I do differently? And really visualize what that would look like, because the subconscious part of our brain doesn't actually know the difference between actually doing and visualizing the doing. So you can actually rehearse and practice the steps and the actions that you want to implement and restructure how you would have done your day differently. And in doing this, you're building a momentum of what it would look like and how it would feel if you actually did the things you say you want to do. And that's just about everything I wanted to share with you guys today. I would encourage you guys to check out the PDF because it's going to be more structured. You can keep coming back to it. There's some great exercises and some questions to ask yourself. And really I would just encourage you guys to immerse yourself in coming back to these exercises and these practices. Because the more you cut out the noise and the more you identify what you don't want, the clearer things are going to get. And they might scare you, they might intimidate you, but it's a practice of identifying what these triggers and what these obstacles are. What's standing in the way of you actually going for what you actually want. Because as I said at the start of the video, deep down we know what we want. We're probably just scared to go for it. And that's the truth of it. So let me know how this video lands. If it was helpful, let me know. And if you want to share or continue expanding on this vision, feel free to send me a message, leave a comment. And if you do want to work with me one-on-one, there's a link in the description as well. And I'll leave it at that. Much love, guys. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.